executive order imposing hard-hitting new sanctions on Iran, as he called it. It's all in response to Iran's downing of our U.S. drone last week. You're watching Outnumbered Overtime now. I'm Harris Faulkner.
To do that rather than going along this very destructive path. Destructive for everybody. Destructive for everybody. We can't let him have a nuclear weapon. He said he doesn't want nuclear weapons. It's a great thing to say. But a lot of things have been said over the years, and it turns out to be not so.
The president taking some questions today, and in the room, my friend, Chief White House Correspondent John Roberts, live with more on this. John?
Harris, good afternoon. You know, Iran may have a president, but it's the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader, who is the one where the buck stops, and the president was targeting the person where the buck stops today, upping the ante against Iran, targeting the Ayatollah Khamenei and his office for tough new sanctions. The president going right to the top to tackle Iran's bad behavior, also at the same time targeting some of Iran's top military leaders. The president and the Treasury Secretary, Steven Mnuchin, who you see on the left side of your screen, saying that some of these sanctions were already in the works. Some are the result of the shoot down of the unmanned U.S. drone last week. Listen to what the president said.
These measures represent a strong and proportionate response to Iran's increasingly provocative actions. We will continue to increase pressure on Tehran until the regime abandons its dangerous activities and its aspirations, including the pursuit of nuclear weapons, increased enrichment of uranium, development of ballistic missiles, engagement in and support for terrorism, fueling of foreign conflicts, and belligerent acts directed against the United States.
Saying that he would hold those talks without precondition, but also suggesting that he is not going to sit by forever and continue to watch Iran's bad behavior. Listen here.
I look forward to discussing whatever I have to discuss with anybody that wants to speak. In the meantime, who knows what's going to happen? I can only tell you we cannot ever let Iran have a nuclear weapon, and it won't happen. A lot of restraint has been shown by us, a lot of restraint, and that doesn't mean we're going to show it in the future.
So in addition to targeting the supreme leader as well as members of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, top military leaders in the Iranian military, Secretary Mnuchin, Harris, also said that later on this week they are going to target the foreign minister Javad Zarif for sanctions. Zarif is very prolific on Twitter, likes to tweak the president. So far, nothing on his Twitter feed about the potential for sanctions against him, but I'm sure that we'll hear from him at some point. Harris?
Very interesting. John Roberts, thank you very much. For more on this, retired Army Major General Bob Scales, a recipient of the Silver Star for his service in Vietnam. That is the third highest decoration for valor in combat. Sir, thanks for being with me.
Hi, Harris.
First question. And this has to do with hitting their military because, you know, they're getting Qassam Soleimani, who is the Iranian Major General of the IRG, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard. And then you've got those 3 other senior members. You've got 5 naval district leaders, that sort of thing. What does that accomplish in terms of the military and the proxy military?
Wow. You know, there's a principle in strategy called vulnerable center of gravity. Our vulnerable center of gravity, as you know, Harris, are dead Americans. America hates to see their sons and daughters coming home in body bags. But the Iranian center of gravity is not dead Iranians, it's financial. It's their economy. They've stayed in power for 40 some odd years because they promised the youth of Iran. Remember, half of the Iranian population is younger than 35, that their future is bright as long as they remained a cohesive society. And remember what happened in 2009 with the Green Revolution. Blood in the streets of Tehran when they began to see that contract with the Ayatollahs begin to fall apart. So the idea of putting any type of sanctions, particularly on the Iranian military, sends a message to the Iranian population that either they toe the line, come to the table, talk to the Americans, or they will see their quality of life crumble. Time is on our side. Oil is what, $57 a barrel and stable. All of the advantages accrue to the United States, and we can't screw this up by overreacting militarily, Harris.
I just want to add real quickly, General, because you brought up oil, and I had our brain room look at this. So the U.S. Energy Information Administration says that by 2020, the U.S. is for the first time since the 1950s on track to export more energy than it imports.
Right.
And increases in crude oil, natural gas plant liquids production outpacing growth of U.S. energy consumption. That puts us also, in addition to a healthy economy right now, creating jobs, so on and so forth, in an interesting position. I want to get to, real quick, go ahead.
Well, it's our greatest advantage is not the military. We're the most successful economy on the planet. The dollar is the coin of the realm globally. And I've always wondered in past crises, why don't we do a better job of leveraging the economic before we leverage the military? Because that's our greatest strength. And
you
I think
we're
this
doing
administration,
it now?
Absolutely.
All right. And
it's long. We have waited 40 years to go after the Iranians and chase down their most vulnerable area. And this is the first president since 1979 to do it.
So Representative Michael Waltz maybe doesn't agree. Republican from Florida says he thinks that President Trump should have carried out the Iranian airstrikes. Watch.
Well, because
I think we should have responded, and I think we should have responded proportionately, whether that is oil platforms, some of the ships that have been attacking tankers, or those missile batteries. Of course, it's the president's absolute right as commander-in-chief to pull that back, but I think what we're seeing from the Iranians today is that they're going to continue to push. I think we should have carried out the strike.
A difference in strategy, General?
Yeah, look, this is not 1988. The world is not dependent like it was on Persian Gulf oil. If we went to the military option this early, we would have restarted the clock. And the youth of Iran, which is their most vulnerable center of gravity right now, the tables would have turned and they would have looked on the United States as enemies because we were striking their home turf. Let's let this play out. Time is on our side. We have the advantage. All of the advantages are with us. And were we to strike too soon, then this would have turned into a military conflagration, and then all bets are off.
It's interesting what you say. I mean, obviously the government, the military, they see us as enemies. What you're talking about are the people in the jobs and businesses and schools and trying to live a life in Iran. If they can look at us as not the enemy, that is the goal in all of this. We might have missed an opportunity with the Green Revolution, but you're saying it can come back. I want to get to this. President Trump today also addressed his relationship with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un, saying they continue to have a friendly relationship. This coming after Chairman Kim received a letter from the president this weekend. What's your reaction?
Well, this is phase 2 of economic warfare. Again, North Korea is obviously a much different strategic situation, but what's their vulnerability? Their vulnerability, again, is a collapsing economy, an economic system that doesn't work, a kleptocracy that survives on blackmailing the rest of the world just to have enough food for their people to eat. And the president's got this right. Put your thumb on the North Korean leader and offer him an opportunity to break out of this horrible condition North Korea is in. And the president chooses to do it through personal diplomacy. It's perfectly fine. We've tried to use the international stage to do it in the past. We tried it, Harris, for 70 years, and it's failed. Let's give it a shot.
Next up, Japan, the G20. I'll have you back, and we can continue the conversation. General Scales, thank you.
Thank you, Harris.
Those incidents, investigations, some of them. Jeff Hall is live in the DR, capital city of Santo Domingo. Jeff?
Yeah, Harris, local officials say the latest man to have died had respiratory issues on the 11th of June and then passed away about a week later on June 17th. At the moment, that brings the number to 12, as many as 12 Americans to have died in the DR in the span of about 12 months, starting back in June 2018. Now, the Dominican government reports most have died from either heart attacks or respiratory problems. All of this happening as one resort in the DR announced it's making some changes. The Hard Rock Hotel in Punta Cana, where at least 2 of the 12 have died, says it's removing liquor dispensers from all rooms. The resort is also bringing in an American health facility to make sure its on-site health clinic is up to all U.S. and international standards. Now, when we sat down with the tourism minister here in the DR, he told us there simply is no mystery surrounding their deaths. If the investigation shows otherwise, he says appropriate disciplinary measures will be taken.
Why did we request the intervention of the FBI? Because the Dominican Republic has nothing to hide, and we want the truth of the primary origin of these deaths, even though the autopsies are completed, to come to light.
Now, families who have lost loved ones say they are still very suspicious about what's going on. They don't buy that explanation that this situation has been an exaggeration.
I mean, it's absolutely disgraceful. It's disgraceful to dismiss the concerns of the families with everything that's going on over there. There's something not right with this story, and I mean, how many more Americans are going to have to die before something is done?
Now, we could get some more clarity next month. That's when the results of 3 toxicology tests that the FBI is assisting with, those results could be due sometime in July. Harris?
Jeff, Paul, we will stay on the news coming out of the DR. Thank you very much. Mayor Pete Buttigieg confronting racial tensions after a fatal police shooting in his hometown, and from the campaign trail has now emailed 2020 Democratic supporters. A line from that email: it is clear we need to implement bolder and more aggressive actions moving forward. Could this pose a larger issue ahead of the Democratic debates? We'll look at it. Plus, Senator Bernie Sanders with a new plan to cancel all $1.6 trillion of student loan debt in the United States. It's even more ambitious than similar plans from his 2020 rivals. Are the Democrats just trying to out-progressive each other? Is that a verb? It is now.
We will make a full and complete education a human right in America to which all of our people are entitled.
His constituents after a white South Bend police officer shot and killed a 54-year-old black man. At issue are the police cameras. They were not on. Buttigieg says he had to face the issue head on, even if it means risking his standing in the Democratic race.
I don't know if it's smart or not. I don't know if it's strategic or not. But it's my city. And I have a relationship with everybody in this city who looks to the city to keep them safe.
Oh, clearly shaken there. In an email to supporters, Mayor Pete Buttigieg called this a, quote, painful but needed conversation.
Bottom line is we should not be punishing people for getting a higher education. It is time to hit the reset button. Under the proposal that we introduced today, all student debt would be canceled in 6 months.
Senator Bernie Sanders unveiled his universal student debt relief plan today. The proposal aims to cancel student loan debt by every American, for them rather, at a cost of $1.6 trillion. Sanders' plan covers more people than a similar proposal from Senator Elizabeth Warren. The two are competing, obviously, for the same block of liberal-leaning voters in 2020. Kristen Fisher is live with the news in Washington. Kristen?
Harris, Senator Sanders is calling this a truly revolutionary proposal. Not only would it erase all student loan debt in America, it would also make four-year public colleges and universities tuition-free. The big question, of course, is how would he pay for it? Well, Sanders says Wall Street should foot the bill.
Our proposal, which costs $2.2 trillion over 10 years, will be fully paid for by a tax on Wall Street speculation, similar to what exists in dozens of countries around the world. The American people bailed out Wall Street. Now it is time for Wall Street to come to the aid of the middle class of this country.
Sanders' plan goes even further than what Senator Elizabeth Warren is proposing. Her plan would erase most, but not all, student loan debt, and it would be paid for by the wealthy, not Wall Street.
Let's start with a wealth tax. 2 cents on the top 1/10 of 1%. We can cancel student loan debt for 95% of the folks who've got it.
The competing policy proposals come just days before the first debate in Miami as Senators Sanders and Warren fight for the far left lane in the Democratic primary. Sanders' lead over Warren is shrinking in the polls. Once a solid number 2, Sanders is slipping. At the same time, Warren is rising. But don't expect any face-to-face fireworks at the debate. The two will be debating on different nights. Warren on Wednesday, Sanders on Thursday. They'll be joined by 18 other candidates. Harris, you know, it's a crowded field, and for many of these lesser-known candidates, it may be their only chance to really stand out from the pack. Harris?
Kristen, thank you very much. I want to bring in now Bret Baier, Fox News chief political anchor. Bret, great to see you. It's kind of like a dance. Who's going to out-lean left more than the person next to them on the dance floor?
Well, that's right. I mean, you have these big priorities, Harris, that all of these candidates seem to be getting into: the Green New Deal, big infrastructure projects, Medicare for all, and now eliminating student debt overall by Senator Sanders. Now, that's $1.6 trillion. He says $2.2 trillion in the whole package. You add that to the other priorities, you've got some real money there. Now, the president is not campaigning on debt and deficit issues, at least not yet, and he hasn't wanted to focus on that. But as a country, up there in the dome behind me, eventually you're going to have to deal with that in reality. Of where the money's coming from.
Exactly. Real money, but real questions about how to pay for it. You know, you and I often have conversations about who the audience is for certain situations. So is the goal to get the most millennials? Is the goal to get, you know, voters who are maybe moderate, who could be swayed in that way, Joe Biden? I mean, what is the goal?
Well, I think for Bernie Sanders, it is to jumpstart his support. I think he's had a bit of a lull, as was rightly pointed out by Kristen. And Elizabeth Warren has captured some of that innovation, some of that talk about policy that young people especially want to hear. So I think Bernie Sanders probably trying to shore up his millennial base. He had a big chunk of it in 2016. He's trying to do it again.
Are there enough of these left-leaning people such that, you know, that the more progressives in the party, or some of them may be attracted to what President Trump is doing now with prison reform, the economy, so on and so forth? I mean, can Democrats say they have this in the bag?
No, definitely not. And it really depends on who the candidate is. This is the beginning of a long journey, this debate week, and these two stages this week in Miami will be key. If Joe Biden can hold his own policy-wise and probably under attack from a lot of different candidates, if one of these candidates shines with specifics or a viral moment, that's the beginning of what will be a long dance to Iowa.
We've seen a lot of viral moments. We've got one going on right now with Pete Buttigieg, and the topic is race. We've got another one going on with Joe Biden, and the topic is race and maybe a little bit of generationalism. Did those things come up at the debates?
I think so. I think a questioner would probably go down that road. I don't know if candidates will be able to go and question other candidates. Those are the big moments, as you know, in debates. If there's one-on-one or two-on-one on a same issue, that becomes kind of a heated exchange. I don't know if you're going to get there. 10 people on a stage, it's tough. I've moderated these things. It's not a lot of time, and you're spinning a lot of plates to make sure it's fair.
We know you have. You are a superstar, my friend. I'm going to brag on you just a little bit. Great to see you. Thank you for talking about it with me.
Thanks, Harris. We'll see you down there.
All right. Sounds good. Right after both debates, tune in for Special Report with Bret Baier, live from the spin room. But you know Bret's not going to allow any spinning. That's not going to happen. Bringing you analysis on all the big moments. Who stuck out, who choked under the pressure. Bret Baier and a few special guests will cover it all in Miami. We'll be watching. A college student takes a late-night Lyft ride from an airport and has not been seen since. Authorities are not any closer to finding Mackenzie Lueck. At least that's our big question. Where are they in all this? A week ago, Mackenzie Lueck's parents say she texted them last Monday from Salt Lake City Airport to let them know she had landed safely. Authorities say she got into her Lyft ride and has not been seen since. William Lajeunesse is live at our Los Angeles bureau with the latest on this. William?
Where did she go? Who did she see? After that 1 a.m. text to her parents from the airport. Right now, that is the missing piece of this puzzle. Police say 23-year-old Mackenzie Lewick took that ride not to her apartment, not to her sorority, but an industrial area north of Salt Lake. Since then, no text, no calls, no Facebook, no sign of her luggage, and she missed work, a wedding, and her midterm exams.
Where could she have gone? Her car has not been moved. Things are adding up.
Police have said that they have no reason to believe she's in danger, but at this point, it's been 7 days.
She might have been meeting someone there. I just don't see any other reason as to why she would be there at that time.
Police did not provide an address of where she went or the name of any suspect. Lyft says her route contained no irregularities, ended where it should, and the driver continued working. Friends say she did not have a regular boyfriend and did not speculate on where she went at 1 a.m. A house, an apartment, a restaurant, seeing a friend or party they did not know about? That is a mystery, and police are not providing Harris any details. Back to you.
William Lajeunesse, thank you very much. Fox News alert now. President Trump has
strong call on the Congress to do their job. It's amazing to think that Mexico has done more to secure our southern border in the last 10 days than Democrats in Congress have done in the last 10 years.
And breaking news now, just crossing the Associated Press wires moments ago, our government is moving toward relocating 300 children out of a Texas Border Patrol station after the AP reports of perilous conditions. Joining me now, Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar. Secretary Azar, thank you for being with me. So with this latest report, can you tell me what is happening either in Texas or other places where our people are housing these children?
Well, Harris, the problem is that our system was not built at the borders to be housing tens of...
What would it take? What's happening down at this Texas Border Patrol station, and specifically, because this is breaking now, where you're moving 300 children? What is going on there?
Well, I'd have to defer to the Secretary of Homeland Security because those are his facilities. I get the kids who come across the border by themselves, and then they're given to us, and we put them in shelters while we work very quickly to try to place them with sponsors here in the United States, usually family members that they already have here in the States, and get them placed there.
All right, and I know we will get some more information because I'm seeing some of it cross on the Associated Press wires. I want to go back, though, to this idea of running out of money in July, and what's being done to turn that around. I know you've written a letter to lawmakers on Capitol Hill. Where are we on that? What's the update?
Well, the Senate is moving with a bipartisan package coming out of the Appropriations Committee. I think they may take that up as soon as this week, and we've been working very closely with them on that. And the House has its own package, and I frankly just wish they would get a unified package, pass it quickly, because we can't afford for this.
Ocasio-Cortez, the Salt Lake City Tribune editorial board on Saturday came to her defense after she called detention centers on the U.S. southern border, quote-unquote, concentration camps. Yes, we do have concentration camps. They are not work camps. They are death camps, at least not on purpose. But that does not mean that the places into which we are herding tens of thousands of migrants, refugees, and asylum seekers are not properly called concentration camps, because that is precisely what they are. And that, I just want to get your response to that.
Well, I think some of this verbiage is just really outrageous. We've got professional men and women at the Department of Homeland Security who are doing their best to try to deal with a catastrophic border crisis. It would be more productive right now to get them funding so that they can actually enhance the facilities that we've got. Now, the Department of Health and Human Services, what I actually run, we are providing shelter for these kids. These kids are in a safe, secure environment. They get 3 square meals a day. They get government employees who aren't getting paid, as you said, like a government shutdown.
All right, Secretary.
We're not going to stop caring for these kids.
No, I hear you. It's what you're providing, though, takes cash in addition to the payment of the people who are caring for them. Just over an hour from now, President Trump is expected to issue an executive order. It'll actually be his second today. And he's asking hospitals, health insurers, and doctors to disclose new details about health care costs in an attempt to improve price transparency. Fill me in on that if you can.
Yeah, so what the president is going to be ordering is for us to use all regulatory powers that we have to get hospitals to disclose information based on their negotiated prices that they have for their services, so that you as a patient will know what something costs. There's wide disparity in pricing, but it's not transparent. You only learn about it after the fact. And also require insurance companies to give you information about what you'll pay out of pocket likely for a service before you get it. You know, you get those explanation of benefits forms in the mail, but it's afterwards. They got that information. Just give it to the patient beforehand so we can make informed decisions. Liberals and conservatives have for over a decade recognized that price and quality transparency, like the president is having the courage to order today, could be the single biggest driver to higher quality and more affordability and lower cost in our system.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say. I mean, if we had more information about what the fine print was on those prices of things that doctors say we need, the decisions would be impacted by that. Secretary Azar, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
The search has intensified. Heard from on June 17th after texting her mother that her flight had landed at Salt Lake City Airport. She then ordered a car from Lyft. No one has seen her since. Chris Swecker, former assistant director of the FBI. So we got the report on this earlier from our correspondent. I want to go deeper with you about what you look for with situations like this. I mean, Lyft, Uber, they have a trail.
They sure do. I mean, I think the police are playing this very close to the vest, because the first obvious question is, did she get from the Lyft car to the house where she went to, and why was she going to another address other than her own? So if she made it into the house, if her luggage were in there, then I think the Lyft driver would be off the hook. If not, then we really have to focus in on the driver.
You know, we have seen a situation, wasn't exactly like this, but it certainly has questions being asked, because we've seen this before or something similar. You know, that sort of connection point that you make with the driver. And should we be in a situation now that there's a text back to someone else? Maybe, like my husband's on my account, so every time I do anything, he also gets an email.
Out of caution, yes. I mean, we've become so accustomed to Lyft and Uber and these sort of third-party driver situations, and I think, especially at 1 o'clock in the morning, a young girl by herself, there ought to be some sort of backup system that you employ, even if the company doesn't have that for you, where you can notify somebody. And I actually, Harris, I hate to say this, I'll probably get calls from Lyft and Uber, but a young person at 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, riding by themselves, I think that's fairly risky.
So you're right. You're probably going to get some emails, text messages, any kind of way that they can reach you, because a lot of people do this all over the world, not just universities. I mean, This is happening everywhere, any hour of the night. You should feel like you're safe. So in terms of how we investigate things in the FBI, is this changing the game and how you go after people when they vanish and try to find them?
Sure, there is an electronic trail, as you mentioned earlier, Harris, that you can follow, not just with the app itself with Lyft or Uber, but also with agencies. We'll call the FBI in very early.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting, too, because it does go beyond kind of the scope of, although I have read that the police department has talked with the driver, so on and so forth. I do want to get this in here. This is a statement from Lyft. The safety of our community is fundamental to Lyft, and we are actively assisting law enforcement with their investigations. And this was adding that Lueck's route from the airport did not contain any irregularities and ended at the destination as originally entered by the rider. Your first question, though, was why did she go someplace other than home? Your last thoughts?
Sure. I mean, I think the police are holding that little fact close to the vest. Who lives there? What did that person tell them? Did she get inside the house? Really key questions there, and they're being very coy about putting any information out there about that, and I think there's a very good reason for that, because they may have a suspect.
All right, Chris Swecker, formerly of the FBI, will follow it. Thank you for your help. President Trump slapping Iran with new sanctions. It is a big story today with that executive order he signed. As Iran, though, is threatening to shoot down more of our U.S. drones. Will this bring Iranian leaders back to the negotiating table? What are they looking for? Panel slides in next.
book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Bleep. What's his new book about? Stick around for some brutal truth from the author, Mark Manson, only on the Daily Briefing.
Conflict with Iran or any other country. I look forward to the day when sanctions can be finally lifted. In the meantime, who knows what's going to happen? I can only tell you we cannot ever let Iran have a nuclear weapon.
Our panel now, Jason Meister, Trump 2020 Advisory Board member. Ooh, you are just the right guy to have. And Rick Unger, syndicated radio host and editor-in-chief of the Daily Centrist. All right, Jason, I'm going to come to you first. But with the president making news on this today, this moves the ball forward. How?
Look, I think the president showed enormous restraint, and he's going to gain respect from that restraint. And he's also going to get moral clarity about his next move. I think he's clearly put tremendous sanctions, economic sanctions, on Iran. He is suffocating them. The fact that the president isn't quickly going to make a military move shows his restraint, and I think that the world is going to see that there's a respect for that.
Well, and the line that stuck out to me, the order will deny Supreme Leader and others access to financial instruments. That's not to say that they haven't hit the Supreme Leader before, but now the world knows he's being hit. I want to talk to you, though, about bipartisanship. Senator Schumer never liked this Iran deal.
Right.
Is there an opportunity for Democrats to come to the table with this president and say, let's get together on this?
Well, there might be, because how often do I get to say that Jason and I agree? And I basically agree with everything he just said. There may be an opportunity here. I think right now here's the problem. It's really hard to figure out a response to a military attack. They shot down a $130 million plane with nobody in it, thank goodness.
Right.
It's very hard to respond to that with additional sanctions when most of us are sitting here going, what else could you sanction, for goodness sakes? I don't know what he means by financial instruments.
Well, he's going after the military. He's going after the leadership.
He's already gone after them.
But he's going after those 5 naval. Go ahead, Jason.
Look, he's strangling them economically, and we haven't seen the results of that strangling yet, and we're going to start to see them buckle. And this president, that's why he was elected, unconventional approaches to problems that haven't been solved by both Democrats and Republicans for decades.
I am much less certain, though.
Let me give you one example from what I've been able to ascertain today. Qasem Soleimani, who's the Iranian Major General in the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, Dan Hoffman said last hour on Outnumbered, he basically steals from the Iranian economy for what he needs for proxy militaries. I mean, you put a chokehold on that. You don't think you're going to see some reverb from that?
Well, you might, but I got to tell you, that chokehold has been there.
Wait, did you want the president to respond to an unmanned drone? Am I hearing you right? You wanted the violence?
No.
Is that what you're calling for?
No. I said I agreed with Jason. No, I'm glad he didn't do that.
So besides sanctions, what would you do?
I understand the pickle the president has here, and I'm sympathetic towards it, because I don't know that there's much more you can do with sanctions. We are strangling them. You're absolutely right. I mean, maybe
you've got to leave yourself someplace to go if they do one of two things. What happens if they come back early July and they start to enrich that uranium? What happens if they hit another ship in that shipping lane?
And by the way, Rick, that's the problem
with
and that's the problem with the Iran nuclear deal, was that there were sunset clauses. So by renegotiating a deal with Iran, we can finally end the possibility of a nuclear weapon.
But you're assuming that